The woke left, they're in full control of our politics, economy, media, education, even our culture. They've embraced a corrosive, destructive agenda of zero direct consequences and absolutely no accountability. And I said direct consequences for a reason, which I'll get back to. But here at home, Soros-funded prosecutors have literally dismantled the criminal justice system. They've allowed violence and looting just to go unpunished, driving hardworking Americans like you and your neighbors out of crumbling inner cities, all while the deranged Trump haters destroy the rule of law and make a mockery of the court system altogether. This lax, hands-off agenda extends, of course, to the rabid anti-American protesters, almost certainly funded by the very same far-left donors who are shutting down our cities and taking over the U.S. Capitol, screaming anti-Semitic genocidal chants, and now even openly supporting the Iran-backed Houthi terrorists who are attacking American troops and ships in the Middle East. Who's held accountable for this culture of anarchy and violence? No one. On the border, the left is plainly allowing a full-on invasion of our nation, inviting in millions of military-age males who share none of our values, and many of whom have no desire at all to assimilate, completely wiping out centuries of American sovereignty that our ancestors bled and died defending. This, of course, also spirals into a cataclysmic drug and sex trafficking crisis, leading to over 100,000 fentanyl overdose deaths each year, and just as many migrants ending up as slaves to the cartels, forced into unpaid labor and sex slavery. Where's the accountability? Absolutely nowhere to be found. And Republicans in Congress can't even muster the moral fortitude to impeach DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, the planner-in-chief of this invasion. And trust me, it is an invasion. He joined the pointless meeting in Mexico yesterday just to conclude, stating that the borders will remain open. Yeah, I said that. The borders will remain open. That's what he came across with. Because it's working, right, Alejandro?
Our approach to managing the borders securely and humanely, even within our fundamentally broken immigration system, is working.
And when it comes to our pocketbooks, the situation is just as dire. Mortgage payments have skyrocketed 90% since Biden took office, with food and energy prices soaring as well. Joe Biden can tout Bidenomics all he wants, but the facts don't lie, as we're now facing historic levels of homelessness and credit card debt. You know, because Bidenomics was the talk of the town and the best thing since sliced bread, right?
President Biden lays out his so-called Bidenomics plan.
Bidenomics is a simple and straightforward principle.
The White House calls this Bidenomics.
Bidenomics, get used to it.
Bidenomics, which is the word of the day, word of the week, word of the month, word of the year.
You don't like Bidenomics?
No, I'm just asking. I'm curious.
I think it's pretty clever. It's pretty good.
And guess what? Bidenomics is working.
Yeah, not so much, Joe, but where does this all come from? Joe Biden's drunken spending binge on pet projects like, the Green New Deal and charter flights for his army of illegals, sending inflation to historic highs and interest rates surging to catch up. Who's held accountable for this? No one. Janet Yellen and her cabal of central planners sit as mightier than ever. And Biden instead comes out once a month to tell the press to stop reporting on the ugly realities of the actual economy. Well, maybe we can look to the future, or can we? Our schools are failing, with students across America barely being able to read or write. Test scores at record lows in math, reading, science. But critical race theory and the gay or transgender indoctrination, those are at all-time highs. Parents get stripped of their rights and then they're investigated as domestic terrorists. But school officials, they're protected with a very broad veil of immunity. And who's fired when so many students fail basic standardized tests? Who's held accountable when these students can't complete anything or even compete later in life with a global workforce? Absolutely no one. And that's why I said direct consequences earlier. These poor children who are being forgotten and left behind by the woke radical agenda will most certainly have to live with the direct consequences. And that's just at home. Abroad, the situation's even worse. First, we had Afghanistan, a humiliating debacle with Biden leaving over a dozen American soldiers dead, and the Taliban freshly equipped with $1 billion in American weapons and gear. Then we had the war in Ukraine, with Biden's clumsy, feckless attempts at diplomacy, failing to deter Russia's invasion, leaving Europe with the biggest land war since World War II. We have 500,000 in casualties and many more millions in displaced refugees. But just to note, the American people are right about this war. 62% of Americans have said that this war wouldn't have happened under President Donald Trump, and indeed it wouldn't have. Right now, though, we have the crisis in the Middle East, where Iran took the nearly, and listen to this number, $100 billion that Joe Biden allowed them to pocket from oil sales and unfrozen assets. And what did they do? Immediately used it to massacre innocent Israelis and Americans. And they continue, even today, using Biden's billions to launch over 100 attacks on American Army bases and paralyze global trade by essentially shutting down the Suez Canal. Has Lloyd Austin lost his job? How about Antony Blinken? Did a single commander or Pentagon official face justice for the Kabul fiasco? No, of course not. There hasn't been so much as an apology. Fortunately, in America, we do have one final, unstoppable measure of accountability, and that's elections. But even that's under fire from the Bidens. As I mentioned a few moments ago, with Soros-backed attempts to strip former President Trump of the 2024 ballot. And a concerted effort by the DOJ-led effort to throw Trump in jail before voters can even get a chance to have a say. This is arguably the greatest effort at election interference in our entire nation's history. Well, consequences matter. Accountability matters. And the truth matters. That is why these anti-American authoritarians will ultimately face defeat. And democracy must and will prevail. And as a United States Marine, I was taught to never give up, never leave a Marine behind, and always have faith in my God, my country, and my Corps. So that's exactly what I intend to do.